I will create a list, my list. I will just call it my list. And remember, you can do this. This means it's an empty list, right? But my list is a list. And I can do another one and create one. Oh, I can create one this way, if you remember. List, that's the keyword, and then range, and let's say 10. So this will give you, who Macron just got in. This will give you a list from 0 to 9, right? Okay, that's one way to create a list of consecutive numbers, consecutive values, right? They have to be consecutive, or you can specify it here by saying the step, by specifying the step. So that's one thing we learned. Another thing is you can add two lists together. So I'm going to just create another list. Okay, right? That's a list. And then I can add those two together. I can concatenate them. Okay. Plus new list. Now, so another list has been changed and it's like this, right? You remember this. This is called concatenation, of course. You're adding a list to another list. And you can also do extend, right? We learned that. Extend will add a whole list to the end of another list. So I can do extend new list. So it will add, oh, let's see, another is not defined. Okay, it's another list, right? That's my name. So everybody, when you have things like this, look at it, it says another is not defined. And look at another, my name is another list. So another doesn't exist. So you will say another list, extend, new list, right? This will extend it. And let's see, this will add this new list to the end of this list. And you can also do another list dot append. This will append a single element to the end of the list, right? It's adding one element, while extend is adding a whole list. So you can extend it by calling this method to add a list to the end of list. You can also do this concatenation. So those are the two different ways of doing it, right? To go through each element in the list, you can do the for loop. I will just do for loop in another list. And you can print it out, or you can add to it, or you can do whatever you want to do, right? I will do list element. If I want to do concatenation, this is, I need to convert it to a string. I'm deliberately doing this to review the conversion part, right? So you are printing it out. That is the for loop. Okay, another way to go through each list element is using the for loop by using the number of elements in the list. So for I in range length, the length of the list, right? And then you print. This time, I is not referencing each element. I is a number starting from 0 to 1 less than another list, the length of another list. So in this syntax, you will do another list using this syntax. Okay, so this is something that it might be a little bit confusing, but you just have to remember it. That's the thing. A lot of, just like grammar in English, you just have to remember the subject comes before the verb, right? You just have to remember that syntax. There is nothing else you can do. So those are the two different ways to access the element of a list, okay? And remember, for this way, this syntax, you cannot change the element. You can only use it. And here we are using it, right? We are using that element. We are not saying element equals to element plus 1 or something like that. When you want to change the element, you need to use this syntax, everybody, okay? So let's do it again. I'm going to do it again. And this time I'm going to change it. Okay, so why does it? Okay, if I need to change it, I need to use this syntax to change. That is the difference. Okay, plus 100, right? Oops. I did another again. Okay, so another list. I give myself more trouble. Plus another list plus 100, right? So this is how you change it. You can, once again, not change it using this syntax. Where is the other one? You cannot using element, look at the difference, right? You cannot change it using that syntax. You have to change it using this syntax by using the subscript operator. Okay, so you can see it's changed. The reason is for this one, you don't quite understand it at this moment. This is an iterator. That means it iterates through each element. It goes through each element. So you can only view it, access it, use it. You cannot change it. You are iterating through it. It's just like you are going through it, right? So this is how you change if you want to change it. Okay, that's one thing. What is another one? We learned this, right? This is applicable to both list and string, right? And we can also use a string. We can split it, right? So string, and then we can say list hello dot split. Remember, this will split it into a list, right? Those are when it splits, it uses what? It uses the default space, right? So we need to. So now it's a list of one element. So let's do it. Spring is here, and now it will give you my list equals to hello dot split. Okay, and now you can see it is 3 elements, right? Len my list, it will give you 3 elements. So this is how you can change a string to a list. And another thing is you can change a string of integers into a list using the split method. And we went through that. What else? That's about it, right? If you really summarize it, it's not much, but it's a process of learning all these. And you have the pop, you have how to pop an element. You can do my list.pop, right? Then here will be gone. Right? So now if you look at my list, it only has spring is. So that's the pop method. And you can also do pop, give it an index. You can also do find, etc. Those are the methods that you can use, right? So we will You can review all that on your own, but I'm just giving you a general review of list. Any questions, everybody? No? Defining simple functions. Okay, defining our own functions. Okay, before we do this, do you remember what type of functions have we learned? Give me one example. So function, and you give me all these: input, float, abs, len, int, print. Those are all functions. Round, yes, they are all functions. And so what is a function? A function is a name. If you look at those, right? Input, name, print, they are all names. A function is a name, but behind that name, there is code. There is a chunk of code that will do what the function says it will do. For example, when you call len, right? L-E-N, len, you are getting the length of the list or the string. Len itself, it's just the name representing that chunk of code. So behind that len, there is several lines of code that's processing the whatever it is, and it counts the characters and give you the length, counts the number of elements and give you the length. So that's a function. A function is a name behind which there is code and logic that will do what it says it does and give you back the value, or does what it does, right? So, okay, very good. So now, okay, so defining now, those functions we used already, and those functions are defined or created or implemented by the programming community, or the Python programmer, right? The people who develop Python. So those functions are created by them. In this section, we will learn how to do how to create a function on our own. We create our own functions. So that's what we are going to do. Okay. Just so that you know, when we say define a function or implement a function, we mean we actually write the function. We provide the code to accomplish that task. Okay, so the syntax of simple function definitions, let's look at it. Definition of a function consists of a header and body. Okay, so this is the function header. This is the function body. The function body can be more than one line of code. In this case, it's a simple function because we are doing the square. And so there is only one line of code. That's the body. And notice the function body is indented, right? It must be indented. It cannot be aligned here. It must be indented. So the function header, look at the function header. It has def. That's a keyword, just like just now I mentioned keyword, right? If, for, they are keywords. So def is a keyword, definition, right? Define. So that's def. And this is the function name. Okay, function name. And after a function name, you must have parentheses. That's very important. After the function name, you must have parentheses. And within the parentheses, you have a parameter. A parameter is simply a value you are passing, you are giving the function to work on. Okay, we call that, when you define it, it's called parameter. When you use it, it's called argument, but you can just interchange them. Argument, parameter, that's fine with me. Okay, so this is an argument or parameter, right? And you are using it, right? So you want to square. What do you want to square with? What do you want to square? You want to square x. So I'm doing x multiplied by x. That gives you the square. If this function is cube, right? Then you will do another one, x. So that's how you implement a function. You define a function, okay? Once again, as I said, define, implement, they are the same thing. So keyword def, define. Function name, those are the must-have items. Parentheses, you must have. And sometimes you actually don't have any parameters, but you still have to have the parentheses, okay? So after the function name, parentheses is a must, and parameters is optional. Sometimes you have, sometimes you don't have, and we will have examples of that. Okay, so this is the parameter, and inside your function body, you work on that parameter. So that's the function definition, okay? And this is the docstring comment, right? This is the inline comment. We learned that already. And then syntax of a function definition, we discussed that already, right? And body. So we discussed that already. Now, I'm going to minimize this. Okay, so a parameter is the name used in the function definition for an argument. You see, we call it argument and we call it parameter. Parameter is when you define it. Argument is when you call it. So that is passed to the function when it is called. For now, the number and positions of arguments of function call should match the number and position of the parameters in the definition. So let's look at this example and then you will understand it. For example, this is a function definition, right? Function header. And this is the keyword def telling you this is a function definition. This is the function name. And how many parameters do we have, everybody? Two. And when you have more than one, you separate the parameters by with a comma. Okay, so you separate them. And I forgot to mention this. After the function header, you must have this colon. And then your function body is indented. Because you are adding the two parameters, so you just add them. That's an expression that will give you the value, and you give that value back, you return to whoever is calling you, okay? So that's the function definition. And now let's look at this function call. When you call this function, okay, you just say add, right? You give it, okay, 5. That 5 will come here. And 6 will come here. And so this x now becomes 5, this y becomes 6. And you add them together, it gives you back a value which is 11. So number will have the value of 11. So after this call, remember this says return, right? It returns the value back to whoever is calling it. So it replaces this function call with the value. So the value is 11. Okay, any questions? And then when you do this one, add, okay, I'm going to erase this. Someone had a question in the chat. If you can tell me what it is. Okay, so let's look at this function. I'm sorry?
He just said Joe just said he'll be right back.
Okay, thank you. So this is add, right? We are calling the function, and this will match this one, and this will match this one, and then this 5 doesn't match anybody, so it will not compile. The system will say, I cannot find a function that accepts 3 parameters. My function accepts only 2. I cannot find one that accepts 3. So this is wrong. Okay, that's what this means. The number and positions of arguments of a function call should match the number and positions of the parameters in the function. Okay, in the definition. So this one, the same. Add 5, 1 parameter, and our definition. So this one is not correct either because they don't match. So the number of arguments and the position, if they have different data types, right? The position have to match. If they don't match, it won't compile. Any questions about this, everybody?
The return doesn't have to be in parentheses?
No, you can. That's a great question. You can do that. If you know, that makes more sense because you think, okay, that's an expression. Finish doing that first and then give me back the value. But if you don't have it, the system will still evaluate this first and then carry that value back. Any other questions? Okay. Let's look at this one. Some functions expect no arguments. They are defined with no parameters. Let's look at this function, okay? Keyword, function name, no parameters. But remember I said, even without parameters, you still have to have the parentheses, right? This, with the parentheses, it tells the system it's a function when you call it. Okay, so, and then this is the function body. You just print out hello. And when you call it, notice I do have these explanations there, right? When you call it, you are saying greet, that's the function name. And you must have this. Otherwise, the system will take this as a variable, right? So when you put this here, the system knows it's a function. And when you call this, it will go to that function. It will match that function. Oh, this is the function you are using. Okay, I will do whatever the function does, and it will print out hello. Okay, if you look at this one, def, the keyword, greet in morning. I did that, greet in morning. Okay, and give me a message. Whatever you give me, right? I will print it out. So this is the function definition with one line of code. And this is the function call. We call that function call. Okay. And when you call the function, you just use the function name like you did, len, print, etc. Use the function name and give it the parameter, the argument. So this is saying, give me a message, give me anything, a string. So you give it a string, right? And you print it out. Okay, and so it will print out good morning. Whatever you give here, this will be passed to this. So this is called the parameter. The parameter is simply a placeholder. It's like a candle holder. You just plug the candle in, then it becomes that, right? So you plug this string, whatever it is, into that placeholder. And so print will print out whatever is in that placeholder, okay? And this is the same. X and Y are just placeholders, okay? It holds a value. So when you call it, you give it a 5, okay? That 5 will go into X, that 6 will go into Y. They are variables. And here, it will replace X with 5, replace Y with 6, and give you the value. Okay, so any questions? I see some chat there. So what is it? To put colon if there is no parameter. Okay, remember, even if you don't have any parameter, oh, I see what you are saying. Very good. I made a mistake there. Let me change that. Thank you. Yes, very, very good. It should be like that. You see, for this one, I did. I do have the colon, right? For this one, I didn't. I forgot to put it there. I didn't do this in the shell. I just did it here. So, okay, great catch. If this is a fish. Very good. Thank you for that. Okay, any other questions, everybody? Very good. I like that. You help me edit this a little bit more better, right? Okay, so now it works. We have the colon there. Any other questions, everybody? Okay, the return statement. The return statement. Place a return statement at each exit point of a function. That means the end, right? When a function should explicitly return the value. And this is how you return something. Return the value. Okay, so once again, if you go back, if you go back here, okay, you want to return this value, right? So that's the expression. That's what that means. Well, if a function contains no return statement, okay, minimize that. If a function contains no, where are you? Contains no return statement, Python transfers control to the caller after the last statement in the function's body is executed. So what that means is, for this one, there is no return statement. Okay, so this is the statement, the last statement in the function body. And because there is no return statement, the function will transfer control back to wherever, whoever calls it. So it comes back to the Python shell, the main shell. Okay, so that's what that means. It just goes back by itself. And therefore, you actually can simply add a statement called return. So for this one, okay, you can actually do this, and this will be correct also. Let me do that. Okay, you can simply say return. So you are telling the function to go back, right? But even if you don't tell it, it still goes back. It knows its way back to the caller, to the master. So that's the return statement. This return statement is really optional. I'm going to put it there. Because once again, without it, the system, the system, the flow of control will go back also. Okay. Any questions, everybody?
And so you want to put that return statement in line with the print statement? Like
yes, because this is part of the function body. So now
okay.
You have two statements. 1, 2. This is the actual work you are doing. This is just telling the system, I'm going back to whoever called me. But
Okay,
it's optional. But it's optional. So with or without it, it functions the same because the flow of control will go back anyway. However, in this situation, you must have the return. Otherwise, this will not do anything. This is an expression, remember. What does an expression do? An expression evaluates to a value. So this will evaluate to whatever value it is. You must bring it back. Otherwise, it stays here, right? After it will go back, but this value will not be brought back. So you have to say, I'm going back with you. I'm bringing you with me to go back to whoever called me. Okay? Any other questions, everybody? No? Okay. So for the previous two functions, greet and greet, I told you that, right? Greet in morning. A return statement is optional. Okay. So now I'm going to let's do some exercises. So use the Python shell to do the following. Write a function that will return the exact quotient of two numbers. Okay, let's do that. I need to restart it. Okay, so we want to write a function To write a function, what do? The first thing you do, what is the first word you must have when you write a function?
Define DEF.
Yes, DEF, right? And then the function name. So we want to write a function that will return the exact quotient of two numbers. Let's call it quotient, right? And after the function name, what must you have?
The parameters.
The parentheses. You must have parentheses, right? Whether you have parameters or not, you must have the parentheses followed by the colon. And in this case, it says write a function that will return the exact quotient of two numbers. So two numbers. So if you want me to give you the quotient of two numbers, then you must give me two numbers. So you must accept two numbers, okay? Num1 and num2, so that you can calculate, right, everybody? I hope you understand this. And remember, this is indented, right? It must be indented. How do you calculate? I don't remember what I meant when I said exact quotient. What did I mean? Maybe I meant to be accurate with the decimal places. So how do we get the exact quotient of two numbers, everybody? How do you calculate the quotient? So we will just calculate it with a division, right? And this is how you calculate it. Well, this will only give you a value. Macreen said the double, you see, here is the thing, the double division sign. I don't remember what I meant, to be honest with you. When I wrote this exercise, I don't remember what I meant. Exact quotient, does that mean the quotient only or the accurate, the division result? So, but I'm glad you all know the difference, right? Sarah and Macreen said the double division sign, that will give you the integer quotient. And if you use the single division sign, that will give you the quotient plus the decimal places. So that's the difference. As long as you know the difference, that's good. This will not be on the test. If it's a test, I will give you a more accurate description as to what to do. Okay, because this is a little bit confusing there. So this will give you the expression. This will give you the value. But once you have the value, what do you have to do? What do you have to do with this value, everybody?
Return.
You have to return it. You have to give it back to whoever will call you. So very simple, right? Okay, that's one way of doing it. Another way, you can do it this way also. Okay, you can say result, or you can say quotient. Is you don't want to use the same name as the function name. Do not use quotient again here, because that is confusing. Sometimes it confuses the system. So I deliberately use quote, not quotient. Okay. And you can do this also. Num1 divided by num2. Okay, so this will give you the quotient. I'm going to comment this one out. We will do a new version. Okay, so now you have the quotient in this variable named quote. And what do you do with that variable? Everybody, what do you do?
You could return it.
Return, yes, you just return it. Okay, so look at the two different ways. You can use one statement, just return the evaluated value of that expression, or you can assign the value of that expression to a variable and return it. So in this case, you have two statements. In this case, you have one statement. Either one will be fine. They both work. They function exactly the same way. Okay, so now we have defined this function. And any questions about this? Any questions about this definition? Okay, so now let's do this one. Call this function with whatever value you want to use. Okay, I'm going to call this function. So to call this function, let's do print it out, right? Quotient. Give it 2 values. And it gives you the result. So when you call it, okay, the system sees, oh, quotient. Okay, I'm going to find that function wherever it is. And it found it here, right? It's here. And then 3, and place 3 in num1. Remember, num1 and num2 are parameters. They are simply placeholders. So you place 3 in that placeholder. You place 4 in that placeholder, num2, and then you just get the value from this placeholder and the value from this placeholder and divide them and return that result. So that is the returned result, right? Okay. And so you call it that way. You can also call it a different way. Let's see, x is equal to int input num1. Okay, let's do this. Right, that's correct. Okay, num1 34, and then I'm using this interactive shell, so it is more work, but this is much more straightforward. I like this. Okay, num2, let's do 12, 13. Okay, and then you can call that function, right? Print quotient. So what do I put here, everybody?
X and Y.
X and Y, very good. Not num1, num2, X and Y. Those are the 2 variables we just got, right? It gives you the quotient. So this is this is how you define the function and how you use it. Any questions, everybody? No questions? Okay. Do you think you can do this one? Write a function that prints out. I said instructor-led, but I think maybe you can do this. Write a function that prints out an announcement telling the class that the class is dismissed. No,
I've already did it.
you already did it. Okay. Place it in the chat so that everybody can see.
Give me a second.
Okay, everybody, before you do it, don't look at the chat yet. Just do it on your own, right? Recording. This says, write a function that prints out an announcement telling the class that the class is dismissed, right? So your function's purpose is to print out this announcement. So you will print it out in the function because that's what the function does. When I call this function, it will print it out, right? So once again, look at the what I ask you to do. Write a function that prints out an announcement telling the class that the class is dismissed. So you will do, what do we do? How do we call this? First, we need to do the def, right? Define. And the function name, I will call it dismiss class or whatever you want to call it, announcement, you know. And this doesn't accept anything because you are simply printing out that fixed string, which is class is dismissed. I'm sharing my screen, right? Okay, let's see someone else post it. No, that's it, right? Okay. Oh, we have quite a few students. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, very good. So that's that. And then you will simply print it out, right? Class is dismissed. This is very much like the greeting, the greet method function. So that's it. And remember, the return statement is optional. You can have it, you don't have to have it because it automatically transfers control of float back to the caller. So now we call it, right? We simply call dismiss class. That's how you call it. and it will, oh, discussed. I said class is discussed. Class is dismissed, everybody. So that's how this is done. And you did it correctly. Yes, 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 very good. Okay, very good. I can see your posting, everybody. I was looking at it. Very good. So any questions about this? This is how you call that function, right? You can call it again and again. Okay, you can call it anything. Let me redefine this. I'm going to just give you another example. Let's redefine it. Okay, I'm going to define a function. Let's just say announcement. And I will accept a message. Okay, whatever you want to say. Let's just say message, right? Okay, whatever you want to declare. So we will say, I will print it out. I will say, here is the announcement from the chancellor. You know, suppose that, you know, the chancellor. I need to make sure I spell it correctly. We don't spell that much now. Chancellor, that's correct, right? Okay, and I want a new line character, right? Okay, and then I will print out whatever that is, whatever the chancellor wants to say. Suppose the Alamo College District is calling this function, and this is what it does, right? Okay, now let's do an input statement, okay? Ask the chancellor, what do you want to say? What do you want to say, sir? Right? Senor? Okay. So you get that message, whatever the chancellor wants to say. The chancellor may want to say, you are all great students, okay? And then we can call that function. We can make that announcement, call that function, okay? And just use whatever the chancellor said. What do we do here, everybody? Are you following me? Okay, what do we place in the parentheses?
Message.
Okay, we have one student who said message. Anyone else?
They're all putting it in the chat message.
Okay, you're putting it in the chat. So let me check. Okay, we have MSG. Isn't that some flavoring thing? MSG, and we have message, MSG and message. Which one? MSG and message. Which one is correct?
MSG.
MSG. Okay, MSG, yes. By the way, I'm going to stop this recording and just ask you a question, a funny question. I don't know. Message here is what? That is the parameter. That's the placeholder. So whatever when you call this function, whatever you give the function, it will place that whatever you give into that placeholder, right? So when you call the function, you actually need to use whatever you want to print out. What do you want to print out? You want to print out this message from the chancellor, from the input from the chancellor, right? So that's correct. Okay. And now you can see this is the function call, right? Okay, everybody? Any questions about this? That is what that is. Okay, so as you can see, if you look at what we did, a function is something that you can really use multiple times. Okay, when it's in this setting. So I can just say, this is to go up a little bit. You can say announcement. Let's give it a new message. What do we want to say? Go and get your vaccine shot, for example. Okay. And here is the announcement from the chancellor. Go and get your vaccine shot. So whatever you have, you give the function here, and it will do. So I can say message, okay? Message equals to go and have yourself a great day, okay? That is the message. Now, when I call announcement, I want to make that announcement. What do I place here, everybody? What do I place inside the parentheses? Message, yes. Okay, because that is there, right? That's the message I want to announce. So you will place message here. And this happens to be the same name as this parenthesis, as this parameter. That's fine. It doesn't matter. They are two different things. This message is referencing this message. And this is simply a placeholder. Okay, so whatever this message is, it will be passed to this placeholder. So now let's see, right? And that's what that is. So why do we define a function? We define a function so that it's cleaner. Your code will be clean because you only see a name. You don't see the messy implementation behind. And also you can reuse it. You can use it again and again and again without having to write those code again and again and again. You think about it, if I don't have this function, every time I want to make announcement, I have to do those two lines, right? I have to do it. But now, because I defined it here, I just need to call that once, call that name, use that name. And when I use that name, the system will go there, find that name, and do whatever the code does, the body does. So that is a function definition, everybody. Any questions? Okay, let's talk about these Boolean functions. A Boolean function usually tests its argument for the presence or absence of some property. So a Boolean, as you remember, it always returns true or false, right? So if that property is present, you return true, false otherwise. So let's look at this example, okay? Let's look at this example. Suppose you have a function called odd, right? And you give it a value, it will tell you if it's an odd number, okay, true or false, right? That is a function. So let's look at the definition of this function. Okay, this is a definition. I should put that there, right? Okay, so define, that's the keyword, odd, that's the function name. X is the parameter. So this odd function accepts one parameter. And we call it X. Can we call it something else? Can we not say X? Can we say Y? We say Y, everybody?
You can.
You can. If you say Y in the body, you have to remember to use Y, not X. Okay, so just so that you know, it's just a name here. It's just a variable name. You can call it anything, but it should be meaningful, right? It should be self-documentary, which means you look at that function, a parameter name, you know roughly what it is. Okay, so this is a doc string that tells you the explanation. And here is the function body, okay, indented. And let's see, if x modulus 2 is 1, you return true, else return false. So if x is 5, 5 modulus 2, that's the result, right? So if x modulus 2 is 1, 5 modulus 2 is 1, you return true. That means it is odd, right? And else you return false. Okay, that is the end. I have detailed explanation here. That's what I updated actually from the previous one. So I added these documentation there so you know what it is doing. So that is a function. If you look at this function, it's a little bit more complicated than the previous ones, right? The previous ones, we only have one statement, and this one, we have one statement only. Here, we also actually have only one statement, but this is a more complicated if-else statement. It's one statement also, but it's an if-else statement. Okay, so that's a Boolean function. Any questions? Look at that function again and tell me if you define a function. The function is, what do you call it? I will just call it within 100, right? Okay, so it says write a function that will return true if the argument is within the range of 1 to 100. That means I give you a number and you tell me if it is true or not, if it is within the 1 to 100 or not, right? That is the function purpose. So how many arguments, how many parameters do we accept? Everybody, how many? Yes, one parameter, because we are saying, give me a number, I will tell you if it is within that range. So we accept one number, okay? One argument, number. And so how do you evaluate if it is within that range? What statement do you use? So if, okay, the if statement, if this number, whatever you give me, is less than what? Less than 100, less than or equal to 100, and remember the and, right? That is the compound, that's the logic operator. And this number is greater than or equal to 1, right? That's the range. So the number has to be greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 100. That is the range. If this is the case, then we will return true. Else, oops. Oh, after all that writing, let me copy. Okay, else, oops, return false, right? Okay, so that's how you do this function. Okay, that's it. Now we can test it within 100 and let's see, 45. Okay, when you test it, you need to test all three scenarios, right? One is the number is within, one is the number is not within, one is the number is below, or one is the number is higher. Within it, you might want to test even the edge numbers, right? Oops. I said within, I said with, so, okay. Wrong function name, within 100. Okay, so let's test 100. It is true, right? Within, let's test 1. So those are the edge values, right? It's true. That means the logic is correct. Within 100, let's test, should be returning false. That's correct. Within 100, let's test 101. That should be false. It returns false. So this is how you test it. Test the values right inside the middle value and test the edge values, right? And test those beyond the range. And this test proves that your function is correct. Any questions, everybody? Okay, I'm just going to tell you, you can also do this to modify this definition. I'm not sure if I can define it again, maybe not, because I already defined it. Instead of saying else, you can actually simply do this. Return false. Okay, this is something I want to tell you. So within this function definition, look at the difference. One is an if-else statement, right? That's one statement, if-else. Here, I'm giving you two statements. One is the if statement, one is the return false statement. So what this does is, if this condition is true, okay, if it is true, you will return true. And once you return, you go back, you ignore all the code below. So once you return true, the return false statement will not execute. I will let that sink in. Okay, I will say it again. Once you return, all the statements below the return statements will not execute. So if this number is within that range, it will go back with a true value, right? This statement will be ignored, not executed. However, if this number is not within this range, this statement will not execute because the condition is false. Then it will go to the second statement and return false. So look at the implementation. This is correct. This is correct. Logic-wise, this will look more professional. Okay, this will look a little bit more amateur. This is more professional looking. The logic-wise. Okay, so, oh, I can redefine it because this is an interactive shell, that's why. So if you do this and you can test it and you will see it is still correct. Okay, true. Let's do a false one. Negative 45. This should return false, right? So that's the two implementations, everybody. Look at it. Okay, this is the Boolean. These two functions, logic-wise, they are the same. Only one logic is more succinct than the other one. This one is more concise than this one. Okay, any questions? So we need one argument. And here we use the keyword define, upper initial. Notice my function name, everybody. Okay, when you do your final project, if your function is not, if your name doesn't follow this rule, this convention, I will take points off. So the function name is the same as variable name. That is, the first word is always, it always starts with lowercase, okay? So the first word is always in lowercase or in lowercase. Beginning with the second word, if you have multiple words in the function name or variable name, you will capitalize the initial letters of each word. So upper initial, upper is lowercase, initial I will be uppercase. Okay, that's the convention. You need to follow that. So we said it accepts one parameter, right? Okay, that's accepting one parameter. So if the initial letter is uppercase, or what if the initial letter of a word passed via the parameter is in uppercase? So how do we test if it is in uppercase? I'm going to ask you. Do this function. I think some of you have finished. Rather than you share your screen and I explain it, I will just do it. I know some of you finished. I look at that chat. I know you, that is correct. Okay, so let's do this function together. So we want to test if the first character is upper, right? So we will say if word 0 dot is upper. This makes it so much easier. If this makes it much easier. You know what? You can simply do this, everybody. You can make it even more simple. That's it. That's the function. Okay, so remember, this will return true or false, right? And you just, if it's true, you return true. If it's false, you return false. Actually, now that we know there is a function, it's upper, this function becomes obsolete. It becomes meaningless because you actually have a function to do that, right? But we utilize that function. So now we can say upper initial, give it a word. This should hello. This should return true, right? This should return false. Okay, so it works, it's correct. What I had in mind, you took the shortcut, which is great. That's what programming is. You want to find the correct function and use it. That's very good. But I want to do it the long way so that everybody understand what is behind this is upper. You think about it. What is behind its upper? How is it implemented? How about we implement its upper? How about that? Okay, so this is how it's implemented, right? You will test and see if the character in the first character in that word is uppercase or not. How do you test that? I will test it this way. Word, we get the first character. That's the first character, right? If that character is greater than, let's say A, uppercase A, and that character, okay, is less than, greater than or equal, right? And it's less than or equal to Z. If that's the case, it starts with an uppercase, right? Okay, so we will return true. And if you think about it, this is what is behind the scene for the upper function, for the is upper function. Everybody, once again, this is a function that's already in existence. The Python developers already developed this method. How is that method done? This is how it is done behind the scene, actually, right? You just test and see if it is within that range of uppercase. I'm going to change this name so that you know it's not the same. Okay, upper init. How about that? I will call it upper init. Okay, upper first char, upper first char. I'm calling it that. So now we have the function, and let's run it. I'm sorry. Let me silence it. Okay, so let's check upper first char. Okay, give me a word. Hello, uppercase. This should return true, right? And it returns true. Uppercase, upper first char. Now lowercase. This should return false. So you can see this is actually the code behind that is upper, right? And we wrote it ourselves here. This is exactly the same as this function, which is developed by the Python developer. Okay, that's this function. Any questions, everybody?